Welcome to a new episode of Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Have you ever been in a situation or circumstance that was so painful to you that you literally felt paralyzed, like you were frozen in time, like the pain was so unbearable that you felt completely stuck, immovable? You didn't know how to release the pain. You didn't know how to dissolve and melt into your heart. Well, that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode, where I'm going to be speaking to parents who are so stuck in their painful situations that they don't know how to cope. Coming up next, a mother and daughter who are both struggling in the aftermath of a divorce. Joining me now is Sheena. She just went through a divorce around 2 years ago, and both she and her daughter are struggling in its aftermath with the new dynamics that divorce often brings about. Hi, Sheena. Welcome. Tell us your struggle.
Hi, thank you for having me. So I recently got divorced and my ex-husband has moved on with another woman. There's quite a bit of baggage attached to this woman. She's not a stranger in our lives. We've known her for a long time. She was a family friend. She's related to me. My kids have known her growing up, and the list goes on. So it feels like there's a lot of baggage attached. He's moved on with this woman. My daughter is now a rock in a hard place. She worries about me not being happy about this new dynamic. I'm extremely uncomfortable and feel like I've been betrayed. But she's also very much aware of the need for her father to be happy, and he is with this woman. So on one hand, I'm not wanting my daughter to walk on eggshells, but she is. So I guess that puts her in a bind and a struggle, and me constantly with the need to be authentic and show her that I too have feelings and I can't just pretend to be okay with the situation, but not to the extent where she's so uncomfortable and is lying to me. And this has happened in the recent past, I'd like to say.
Well, so she's kind of lying to protect mom and herself because she knows that the truth is too hard for you. So say, for example, they all went on a great vacation together and she had a great time, or she confided, God forbid, in that woman versus you. She knows that would be too painful for you. So now she's lying, which is what our children typically will do, actually to protect the pain of themselves getting into trouble or exposing themselves, or to you. What a rock and hard place indeed. And I feel for you because it's very hard for you to fake it, right? And you're trying to be authentic and nurture your own grieving heart. I'm sure it was like a double betrayal to you because it was someone who you trusted. And now your ex is with her, and now your child may be leaning on her. And of course, that brings up so many issues. So let me ask you, just to make it clear to myself and to the listeners, you are not really upset with your daughter per se, and your daughter is not really upset per se. You're upset because of that other woman intervening in your life with your daughter, and your daughter is just scared, but she likes that woman. She's comfortable with that woman.
100%. Initially, I would go back to my daughter and sort of offload, I hate to think that that's what I did, but I did. And, at one point she turned around and said to me, Mom, how can I not like this woman? I've known her since I was 4 years old. And that just put me in my place because she's right,
So your daughter's right. And I'm so proud of you because that takes so much courage. You want to know, how can you manage these feelings that are so human? It's so natural. I can't imagine a single woman who would not feel those feelings. But now you're seeing that it's harming your relationship with your daughter and you want to do something about it.
Yes.
So I think at the core, right, of all these struggles, and I think this is a universal issue. It's not just about your unique situation with this ex and this betrayal. It's just about life and how to accept when life doesn't turn out our way. How do we accept when the people we counted on, when we depended on them, they didn't turn out the way we wished them to, that they let us down, right? So this is what we're struggling with if you take it to its common denominator, which I think every listener has been through, right? How do we deal with betrayal? How do we deal with people not showing up the way we expected? So Sheena, the fact is this: your ex has moved on, correct?
Yes.
That is a painful reality in and of itself. but it's a reality you're going to have to get used to because it's happened. It's true that he's with someone else. Number two, he's with someone who you would last like him to be, right? The last person is this person because you were intimate with her, you were close to her, you were friendly with her. So there's two double whammies here, and they are very painful. But if you put them together in one box, we could call that box painful reality. So how do we deal with painful realities? Number one, we must come to terms that it's here, and our resistance to it actually doesn't make it go away, does it?
Not at all.
Right. You're resisting her, you're resisting it. Does it make it any different? The reality is here to stay, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I remember once I was with a woman who was in love with a married man, and she kept waiting for him to change his reality. And I kept saying to her, you know, it's like you're sitting right now on a blue couch and you keep wishing it was red. We all have those moments where like, why can't it just be different? And it doesn't make any difference to reality. Reality wins. Number two, who suffers when they resist reality? In the whole foursome, right? The ex's new girlfriend or wife, the child, and you, the mother. Who is suffering the most?
Me.
Exactly. So the last thing I want to highlight is that your thoughts of resistance, your anger about the past, your denial that this is here to stay, your own inner turbulence is causing you the greatest pain. Right now, this is the common human phenomenon. We cause our own greatest suffering. And then you're causing your daughter to suffer because she's just trying to get along. She's just happy that she likes this woman. Imagine if it was a woman you actually didn't even ever know or like. It would be 10 times worse, maybe, or at least as bad, right? So, Sheena, it's about you waking up to your present reality. I know it's hard, but you're making it way harder than it is. And surrendering to our reality, no matter how painful, is the grown-up thing to do right now. I know it's hard. What's coming up for you as you're listening to this?
Oh, I'm just like, by surrendering, I go into a battle in my mind about, is that just accepting something that's wrong or...
Oh, beautiful. I get it. I love it. So let's go to that. You have a hard time surrendering because you have a fundamental belief that this is wrong.
I do.
Okay, beautiful. And I'm going to challenge you now because that's what we all do. Somewhere we believe that it's wrong and it shouldn't be this way. But we come in with the shoulds. We shouldify our reality, right? I always tell people, stop shoulding reality, So let's talk about that. What is wrong about this? Tell me. Just vent it out. What is wrong?
Who this person is, the relationship that we've had, the friend that she was for me, the friend that she was for him. She is actually the ex-wife of one of his friends. My ex-husband was married to her ex-husband's sister before him and I got married. There's like layers and layers and layers of relationship dynamic, I guess, in who this person is. And I just believe it's wrong.
Okay, beautiful. So here you are, you're stuck in the corner of the room called wrong, okay? And they're out there in their corner and they call it right, okay? Now, we can debate for hours about the ethics of this. We can debate for hours around who broke the code, right? Because what you're saying is, no, there's a code and they broke the code, right? And you're having this tizzy fit because they didn't follow the rules. And the rules of the game is you stay away from your best friend's husband or whatever the rules we've created. But here's the thing. Those are your judgments. And I'm sorry to challenge you, because in their mind, they did what was right for them and they didn't seek to harm anyone. They will say, if I could project, that they fell in love. And that's a beautiful thing. And they're not looking to harm anyone. But if we stay stuck in judgment of other people, which is so easy to do, what happens is we stay stuck. And who are we to say how other people should behave just because that's our code of ethics? Even if I agreed with you, it's not helping you to stay stuck in the corner called wrong and be judgmental because they're moving on with their life, Sheena, and you're not. We all become judges of other people. We all enter a higher moral ground and point a finger. But let's just say something, and you're not going to like this, but just go with me, okay? Because this is the way we bridge differences. This is the way we get unstuck. We go to uncomfortable places. So anyone listening right now who is stuck in their own life, hurt, feeling betrayed, feeling like they've been wronged, this is the way we have to get unstuck. First, we have to ask ourselves, do I want to get unstuck? Or do you enjoy being in this stuck place? Maybe you enjoy it.
Not at all. It's actually really painful.
Okay, good. But then in order to move out of our mental stuckness, we need to move. Okay, so I'm going to challenge you to shift and create a new mental set, okay, which is going to be hard. But here's what I'm asking you to imagine. Imagine you fell in love with the love of your life, and it was your ex's best friend, or, cousin brother or cousin or something like that, What then? Would you not go for that? I mean, I know it's hard to even imagine right now because you're in such a hurt place, but imagine the love of your life was your husband's best friend. I'm just saying to you, would that make you a bad person? Would that make you an evil person?
None.
Would that make you an immoral person? Would it make you a human who just fell in love with, the most inconvenient person ever? What I'm trying to say to you, I'm not advocating that we should all go out there and fall in love with our partner's siblings, okay? All I'm saying is, can we just back off the high moral horse and understand that people are human? Feelings just arise in the moment. And sometimes other people are better matches or soul teachers than we are. And letting go of our morality, of our judgmental superiority, that is wrong and this is right. And I would never. The other day, just maybe a few months ago, I had a woman come to me talking to me about her infidelity. So I'm reminded of her right now. And all she could keep saying is, how could I be infidelis? How could I? I said to her, what makes you so special that you are above infidelity? And she said, because all my life I judged people who were infidelis, and now look at me, here I am. And I said to her the same thing. Are you a bad person all of a sudden because you had feelings for someone else? She's like, no. And I said, so you judged people out of your own conditioning. All I'm saying to you, I'm not advocating that we should all go out there and do this. I'm not advocating that we should hurt people. Listen, they probably hurt you terribly by not being honest, by not being transparent. But please also understand that they may not have known what to do because they knew you would have an avalanche of pain. All I'm saying is that we're causing ourselves pain by judging. And if we could instead move from judgment to empathy, move from judgment to compassion, and release that anger, what a lesson you're going to teach your child, your daughter. I know you're struggling. Go ahead.
Sure. I just think, what has this dynamic, what has this shown our children? Is this okay then for them to experience?
Oh, I love that. Okay, let's go there. Again, what has it shown them? It's only going to show them that this is bad and wrong and destructive by the consciousness of the people who are handling it. I always tell people who are going through a divorce, it's not the divorce or the breakup that's bad. It's the consciousness of the people who are handling the divorce. This is actually not a bad thing. It's bad because we are seeing it as bad and we're handling it terribly. And really, you, by being so angry, you are making this a worse thing than it is. Imagine if you were in a different place and you understood, because you had done this in your own childhood or your own teenagehood, right? You fell in love with somebody you weren't supposed to fall in love with, and you could understand, then you would teach your daughter, hey, things happen. Life is unpredictable, but we're all acting out of love. We're all trying our best. We're all struggling here. Let's not judge people. Let's move in love. Right now, you are teaching fear. You're teaching separation. You are the one really, your consciousness really, is struggling to accept this. Your daughter has accepted it. She's okay with it. She's not going to, write a rule in her book, hey, fall in love with your partner's sibling or best friend. No, that's not what she's going to take from this. If you surrendered with beauty, what she would take from this is life is messy, love is messy, but we can handle it with consciousness. Love is messy, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Without a doubt.
Love is a gamble. Love is messy. But let's release our rigid ideas of right and wrong. And like Rumi said, beyond the field of right and wrong is another space. Let's meet each other there.
It's a big one. Thank you.
I think your daughter will be so delighted if you were okay with this.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheena. I know I've given you something to think about. You're so brave. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Coming up next, a father who's disconnected from his 21-year-old son, and currently they aren't even on speaking terms. Joining me now is Albert. Albert is in a pretty unique situation. He and his 21-year-old son have been disconnected for a while. We're going to discuss what led to it and what's going on right now. So, hello, Albert. Tell us, how come you and your son haven't been talking for a while? What led to that?
I had forced my hand and gave him an ultimatum about basically three choices, going back to school or going to a trade school, or at least getting a job as opposed to just not doing anything all day long. And I really started to push that issue, mainly because he was now 20. He was no longer a teenager. And that forcing the issue, I guess, for his perspective, I felt as if I was invading his space. I wasn't giving him enough room. All I wanted to see was some progress, something. Show me something is what I wanted, and I wasn't getting that. So he kind of went into the opposite direction. I winded up with a girl. The girl, I think, had a lot of influence on him. And basically, he at one point just said, we're moving out. And where he's at now is living with their parents at their house, and I don't think anything has changed. That's just basically it in a nutshell.
I hear you. And I think what this is a failure to launch situation where you were watching this young adult and they were not motivated to kind of get on with their career, to earn, to study. And that agitated you as a father. I can just imagine watching your child not taking the steps into adulthood can be quite provoking. Let me ask you, how did his mother deal with it?
I'm old school hard love. She is quite opposite. She's not hard love. She's very loving. She's a perfect mother. But for me, it's regretful because as a father, you try to do the best you can do for your children, especially your son. Because as a male, I know how males operate, and you have to push them. They have to be pushed.
Were you pushed by your father?
Well, I think that's a Generation X thing. We all were. We're not only pushed by our parents, we were pushed by society.
Right. And you feel that if you had not been pushed, you would have not been this successful.
Maybe so. I mean, that's subject to, debate. I did have the sense of urgency. Let's put it to you that way. I think today's generation, they don't have that sense of urgency. And then maybe that's our fault as parents. I do know my wife, it affects her a lot because she's not in those talking terms with her son like she was before, because he's kind of holding both of us to blame. Like, we're the worst parents in the world, basically.
I hear you. Were there emotional issues your son was going through from 16, 17? Because these things don't just happen in an instant.
Well, he is my stepson.
Mm-hmm.
We're always conscientious and we're aware or trying to be mindful that, I'm not his real blood father, but I have been his father since he was 2 years old. He was the only boy in the family. And he was kind of coddled in that sense because his grandfather never had the son he always wanted. And of course, he was the firstborn son in the family. And because there was an abandonment with his real dad that left and really had nothing to do with him, they tend to be real soft with him. And I kind of always felt like, well, I get that, but you don't want to be too soft with it because life doesn't want to hear your sad story.
Mm-mm. Yes, I hear you. And I hear a lot of words that are very typically used by parents, very soft, very hard, tough love. And those words sometimes can mislead us into thinking there's one way or another way. Actually, both those ways are really not going to hit the mark because being too soft doesn't mean that's effective, like you pointed out. And being too hard or tough, that doesn't really work either. Like now, you don't even have a relationship with him. So where is that middle ground? And it's really hard for parents to hit that right balance. But what it sounds like is that there's been a disconnection. And that disconnection is hurtful to all of you. You're all suffering in this system. And whether you show it or not, I know you're affected because your wife is affected. And if she's not happy, you're not happy. So what is the missing ingredient here to allow you all to come back as a family or at least be connected? Ultimately, this is her son. And yes, he should, quote unquote, grow up. He should be responsible. He should care about his future more than you care about his future. But is the other extreme then to be disconnected from our children, right? Where is that middle ground where we can motivate our children without abandoning them, where we can be there for our children without pushing them off the cliff? And that's what I feel is the missing piece here. Your wife seems to be on one end of the spectrum, super soft, super yielding, super coddling. And then you're on the other end, you're the tough love sergeant. Love is not about these binaries. Love is somewhere in between. And relationships are messy. They are not clean cut, either this or that. Yes, your stepson, your son is going through a lot. And if we just cast him aside, now what? Now we've doubled the emotional issue. We've made it worse. This is not making him more independent. This is just making him more resentful. And you're not really motivating him. You're just actually creating an irreparable chasm between the two of you. So what can we do differently that allows us to, yes, set out the expectations, but to do so in a way that doesn't rupture the connection?
Mind you, we have reached out to him. We have tabs on. We know where he's at. We know he's safe. We know he's housed. He's not living on the streets or anything.
Have you all tried family therapy?
Yeah, we've tried all that, all through his teenage years.
So that's what I was trying to ask. So this is something that hasn't happened about recently. This is an ongoing issue. And what were the issues back then in family therapy that you were dealing with? If you could just list 1, 2, 3.
The number one issue was ambition. My son always lacked ambition. He had no motivation.
Mm-hmm.
We had him in music school. He took me piano lessons. He's great, very artistically talented. He has all the abilities and the capabilities.
When he used to be a young student and came home and showed lack of motivation or ambition, how did you and your wife react? How did you react?
Yeah, I tried all phases. I gave him his space. I had very kind talks with him, but I also had a dark side where there were some, getting after him, where your patience was tested and you're over there yelling and screaming, which is, obviously counterproductive. But, I think every parent has that.
Right, I know. But we're talking about you are expressing that you were losing your mind, you were losing your temper. And how many years are we talking about that these incidents would happen over the years? How many years back did this start?
Probably when I felt like it was time for him to, really show some improvement in things. But I don't consider anything that I recall that is not normal.
I think you're constantly trying to make sure that you're normalizing your experience, and you don't have to, because I'm not judging you. Everything you said is true. It is all, quote unquote, normal. But was it conscious? Was it connected? I don't know. It sounds like this boy is a very artistic, a dreamer, and they have different kinds of wiring. And you sound like a very left brain, literal, logical, achievement oriented, very masculine energy male. And it sounds like your son has a different temperament to you. And it's not so much that he is not motivated as much as I don't think you really understood who he is or was. And I think there's been a severe disconnection in your relationship for a long time. And I think maybe you could pause for a moment or two and really reflect on whether you've ever really connected with him, whether he's ever really felt safe with you, whether he feels seen by you. I think you were raised in such a traditional way where boys were successful and boys were doers and boys were achievement oriented. And you've been driving yourself so hard and you're a super achiever in your own way. But he's not that kind of person. He's a different kind of temperament. And now there's this huge disconnection between the two of you. And now what? He's not going to stop being who he is. And I agree with you. Many of us parents, we need to have boundaries. We need to tell our children, hey, you're 21 now. I need you to pay the rent, or I need you to contribute to the house. Sure, let's have expectations, but let's not create a disconnection at the expense of that expectation. Just because your vision of who he should be hasn't come true doesn't mean we now just disconnect from him. We must always try to give the feeling to our children that we are their allies. We don't have to support their pocket money. You don't have to give him gas money. Don't even give him food, but don't disconnect emotionally from him. You see the difference? One is putting a boundary in terms of the doing of life. You don't have to do anything for him.
I want to be clear, though. I mean, there's no emotional disconnection between, as far as like I have emotionally cut him off, because I never actually cut him off. He chose to leave the house. I mean, that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. But, I have tried calling him. My wife calls him, but he's made it very clear he doesn't want anything to do with us right now.
And how does that feel for you that he has?
Well, for me, as a man, it doesn't affect me in the sense that I'm not worried about it, because I know how men are. I know how boys are. He'll put it together. I know that.
So I love what you just said. So I just want us to pause. You trust him to put it together, right?
Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Do you communicate that trust to him? Does he know that my father trusts me to grow up and I'm going to be okay? Do you ever say that? Or do you communicate to him that you're worried about him, that you're concerned about him? What energy do you think you communicate to him?
That's very good, Dr. Shefali. I can't honestly say that. I know I think that. I know I feel that. But I also know that his mother tells him that all the time.
I'm not talking about his mother. I'm talking about his father, who he wants his approval. When you were young, didn't you desire your father's approval?
Of course.
Yes. And was it different than your mother's approval?
Absolutely.
Okay. Did your father give you approval? Did he give you verbal praise, validation, approval, expressions of love, comfort, safety? Did he?
Yes, he did.
How did that feel for you when he did?
Yeah, I always felt good, But he had his moments where I got my backhands every once in a while.
I know you did, and that's why you're kind of tough with your son.
But now the good news is this, on this side, I will say this. I never laid a hand on it.
Okay, good.
I've never laid a hand on it, although I was very tempted to, and I have bouts with him.
I hear you, but I'm talking about the positive validation, affirmation, trust, respect. That is what you need to communicate to him, even if he doesn't live in the house. That's where you can make a shift in your connection with him. Hey, son, I know that we're struggling right now. I know that you don't feel like you want to be here. I understand. I'm willing to do the work it takes to repair our relationship. But I want you to know, I know you're going to be okay. I trust you. And I apologize for the way I rode you, but I just want you to know that I'm worried. And that's where it was coming from. That's what our children need from us. Your being silent like this is really possibly hurtful. Now, like you said, he's a guy and he's your son. So like you, he probably compartmentalizes. But I think you're a good, well-meaning father. And it hurts you on some level, even though you're being really, masculine and you're being bold about it. But I know deep down it bothers you. So this is how you can reach out and express your trust and validation and affirmation and bridge that connection so it's not so wide. Do you think you can do that?
I can do that like right now, but he's got me blocked. I can't go to a straight. I haven't even met the father.
Okay, let's pause. He's blocked you because he was tired of your negative energy toward him. He blocked you because, maybe he didn't want to grow up and you were riding him too hard. Maybe he just, didn't want to be motivated the way you were motivating him. But there's nothing stopping you from sending a message on your wife's phone and saying, hey, it's me, Albert, your dad, just reaching out to say, I apologize for all the things I may have done to hurt you. I just want you to know I miss you, son. I love you. And believe it or not, I trust in you. Start the conversation, but don't do it with any expectation that he's going to melt. It's going to take a long time because a lot of damage has been done. The last time you spoke to him, it was a year ago. So give it some time, but make an effort, because I know that deep down, you would have liked that from your father. Every child likes that from their parents as well. Something to think about.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for sharing. I know your story will resonate with so many people. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Both of the parents we've heard from today are stuck. They're stuck in their corner of being right, and they don't know how to get out of it. But it's clear that they're both suffering. And this is such a common phenomenon in us humans. We put ourselves in really rigid boxes and don't know how to get out of our own cages. We suffer. Even this father, even though he didn't tell me he was suffering, it was so plain to hear and see. I often tell people that we wear these masks, you see, these masks of being the judger or being the right one or the good one. And these masks protect us from going deep into a place of vulnerability. We believe that if we become vulnerable, we are actually weak. What we don't realize is when we take off those masks and enter vulnerability, we are actually our most courageous. I write in my book, The Parenting Map, we can almost tell our ego masks this message. Hey, ego mask, you are free to F off. You have served your role in my life, but now you are just keeping me stuck. I have to move past you. I no longer need you to protect me because I am working on healing my inner child. I'm learning to be okay being vulnerable. My inner child doesn't need your protection anymore. In fact, you are now causing me to disconnect from those I love. I am learning to be whole and healthy, and you, my ego mask, are now lovingly fired. It is time for us to wake up to our inner fears and vulnerability. We wear these masks of being right or being stuck or being the judger because that protects us from reaching out to those we love. In both the parents' stories, their stuckness is causing them pain, is causing them suffering. And it is only when we release that ego, release that need to protect us, that we can go from our head to our heart. And when we enter the heart, and when we are authentically connected to our own heart, automatically we expand, we release our negativity, and our children come toward us. Yes, the process of evolution is a never-ending one. If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, don't forget to subscribe, share it with others, and I will see you next time on Parenting and You with me, Dr. Shefali. Parenting and You with Dr. Shefali is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as a substitute for professional medical, psychological, psychotherapeutic, coaching, healthcare, or other qualified professional advice, diagnosis, or treatment.